In this bonus video, I'm going to go over using the proof protocol to create your first product, or you can also use this very same method and these nuances to help you create an additional back-end product if you already have a product you're selling. Now, the first thing we're going to do might seem a little strange, but this will make a lot of sense when we go over this. So I want you just to take out a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you just to write down all the areas that you know something about. Maybe you're a little bit better than average in these areas, and they can be anything from your past, maybe something you've studied as you've grown your own business. They could be hobbies that you're interested in that you've done for many years. They could be something you enjoyed as a child. Anything. You'll see in our sample list here, we've got email marketing, Google Analytics, WordPress, we've got barbecue, cooking, fishing, magic tricks, metal detecting, camping. It really doesn't matter. We've made an entire list here just of different things that we're better than average at, that we've done a little bit of, that we've enjoyed. If you're making an existing back-end product for an existing product, then these would be lists of things that are very related to your front-end product. So go ahead and make your list. You can pause the video, and then I'm going to have you do something that seems a little bit strange. So make your list and then come back to the video. Okay, now what I want you to do is next to each of those items, I want you to go ahead and put $1 million. Okay, and this might seem like, why in the world are we doing this? This makes no sense. I'm going to tell you a story on where this came from. Many years ago, I received some information about a man who was making $1 million a year selling wooden hangers. You can make $1 million today in some of the most obscure and strange markets. Now, if you can make $1 million selling wooden hangers on the internet, I promise you, you can make $1 million with aspects of magic tricks or fishing or cooking, binoculars. Someone right now is already making $1 million in every one of these areas. And the reason I have you write it down, it kind of like resets your thinking for a minute. A lot of things you already know how to do, people are more than willing to pay for them. That's what you need to go into the next piece of this puzzle with that information. So now that you've done this little experiment and you look at it and you realize it's absolutely true. Someone's making $1 million right now selling air guns or paintball, photography, printer repair, Google ads, YouTube ads, keyword research. The things I already know how to do, people are making a very good living doing them. So why shouldn't I get in on that? Why shouldn't I go ahead and use those skills to make money? That's what I want you to take away from this little experiment, this little homework assignment we just did. Okay, the next thing you want to do is just take one item from your list that you like. Now, we mentioned any of these could be worth $1 million. Obviously, some of them are going to be easier than others because of base prices of the products, but any of them would work. So we're just going to take one. We'll take this WordPress one from the list. Okay. Now let's talk about the nuances of this mind map and why it matters. First of all, let's talk about who this guy Mike is. Okay. So give it any name you want, but Mike is your skeptical friend. Okay. Mike will call you out. Imagine you're having a conversation with your friend face to face in person, and you're going to say this to him, and he's going to stop you if he doesn't believe it's true, if he's never heard this before, if he thinks you're making it up, if he thinks you're pulling his leg. So he's going to totally stop you. That's who Mike is. And that's an important nuance when you make one of these. It's supposed to stop you in your tracks and say, I don't really actually know how to do this after all. Okay. So when you put down WordPress and you say, hey, Mike, okay, that should be your trigger that you're talking to this guy. He's both skeptical. He'll ask questions. He'll call you on your stuff if you don't really know what you're talking about. He is, he's a good friend. He knows a lot about you, and he's been around for a long time. So he knows when you're, making stuff up. He can read your body language. He can tell. Okay. The next part of this phrase that's important is this made or fixed, or it's something you've done. It's not can. So one time I hired a guy to make a fence, and I asked him, can you make a fence for me? And he said, yeah, I can. So I hired him, paid him, and he got out there with the materials. And when I came, a day or two later, looking at this fence that he was supposed to be building on this property, it looked horrible. And it looked like it was going to fall over if there was even a slight breeze. That's when I asked the more important question. Have you ever made a fence before? And he said, no, but how hard can it be? So that's when you realize in this statement why this past tense, I made or I fixed, it's something you claiming that you've actually done. Now, if you get to this part where you're writing something about WordPress and something doesn't feel right, that's your clue that you're probably in over your head already, okay? But if it feels right and if you can say it and, Mike's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. You know a lot about WordPress, that makes sense. Then you're onto something here. So that's the first nuance that you need to pay attention to when you're mapping these things out. Is it true? Can you really get results in this area? Now let's go down to this first tier. Okay, so we've got, hey, Mike, I made my WordPress website lightning fast. And what does he say? He says, what did you do? What did you do? And this reminds me of a really funny clip in a family movie from Disney. The older man in this scene, he's actually meeting himself at 8 years old. It's kind of a time travel, if you will, movie. So he's meeting himself at 8 years old, and he's basically having a conversation. The 8-year-old is seeing the life of the older man and kind of wondering what's going on. So he's asking some questions. Here you go. Watch this clip.
Why don't I have a dog?
Because I don't want a dog, okay? I can't take care of a dog. Travel all the time for work.
Travel for work? I grew up to fly jets, right? I knew it. I knew I would grow up to fly jets.
No.
No, I don't fly jets?
Not really, no.
What do I do then?
You're an image consultant.
What's that? What does a consultant do?
Consult.
But what do I do?
So that's what I did. I used PageSpeed Insights to optimize the source code and images. I removed the old plugins. I optimized the WordPress database. I made static HTML pages for parts of the website. I set up Cloudflare correctly, okay? What did you do, okay? Again, one of the goals of this process is to kind of bring to the surface the areas where you can actually get results, not areas you think you might be able to or things you think you know a lot about, but what have you actually done in the past and gotten great results with? That is what this process is really good at. And don't worry about, you can put as many of these across here as you want. There's certainly more you could add to this. There's other ways to make WordPress faster than the ones we put here, but it's okay just to put a few. It's okay to put a lot. It doesn't matter. The whole process here is just to kind of pull out areas where you really get good results. So I'm going to just expand on this first one here where I said I used PageSpeed Insights to optimize the source code and images. Okay, so next I'm going to pop this down here, and Mike says, well, how did that help? So you did something. How did that help? So what were the actual results you got? And you can say, if this was your mind map, well, my website loads faster on desktop and mobile, so visitors don't leave right away. Okay, so you sped up your website. It loads a lot faster now. Now people aren't waiting 5-8 seconds because of those huge images on the homepage and the clunky code that's slowing everything down. That is what happened after you used PageSpeed Insights to optimize source code and images. Now he, again, is this super skeptical friend. He kind of likes to call you on what you claim you can do. And so he says, prove it. And this is where you will go ahead and show him what happened. Now, these are going to be the images, but for simplicity here, for this actual video, I haven't made the images, but we're going to talk about what they would be. So my website loads faster on desktop and mobile, so visitors don't leave right away. There's 3 different images, and we're going to talk about why each of them could be a good use. And I think actually the best would be to string the 3 together. So one image would be the actual score from Google PageSpeed Insights showing the previous score for desktop or mobile. Let's say it was 55, and then showing the score you got after your adjustments to the code and images, which in this case we'll say it's 99. And that is going to be an actual screenshot from before and after. Okay, so that's the first before and after picture you could use. The second one that we're going to talk about is showing a bounce rate improvement. So after you fix the speed of the site, The second image would be you're going to actually demonstrate that in Google Analytics, I used to have an 80% bounce rate on the homepage because it loaded so slowly. And after I made the change in the fix and I got the higher score and the website's loading quickly, notice the bounce rate went down to 40%. So that is a big improvement. Quite a few more people are staying on the homepage longer because of the fixes I made with the speed of the website. The third one you could show, which is really getting to the heart of why you would make these changes, is that because so many people were leaving before, the earnings per click on this particular page was 20 cents. And after, it bumped up to $1.29 because more people stayed on the page, more people interacted with the page, more people made a purchase. Okay, so these would be 3 different ways that you could demonstrate the value of what you did here with how did that help. Now, I would suggest that probably what would be a really great image at the top of the page would be to put this one first, and then go and put this one second, and then this one third, and actually show the progression. So at the top, you put the before and after score. And then what does that mean? Well, the bounce rate got better. And then what does that mean? Well, the earnings per click got better on that page. And you would actually show how this led to this, because this is really the one that they're after. Like it's not just a vanity metric that they made their page faster. They actually want to earn more money. And that's why they would spend the time doing this. So let's go back to that original concept that I pitched, which was that you could make $1 million from any of the items on your list. And now, mind you, this isn't just an item from your list. This is a very specific result that you could get based on one element of one item on your list. But now I want to show you the actual proof of someone who's actually doing this for this specific item here. So I want to show you, this is an actual product. I believe the fellow's name who started this was Scott Marlowe, if I remember correctly. I remember hearing about this offer that he had, and it's called Boost. And first I'm going to show you the offer, and then we're going to actually do a little bit of a teardown of this site to kind of show some concepts, what I would change about this. I think it'll be helpful to see because you're going to be doing something like this as well, making your homepage of your offer. So first of all, it's called Boost, and then you scroll down and you'll notice here he goes right into text. But if I scroll down a little farther, here we go. So he actually has this before and after concept. And here's the desktop score, mobile score, and then the new desktop score and mobile score after he's made the improvements there. And he goes on, he does a really great job here showing, the host that the person's using, the theme they're using in WordPress, the builder they're using, and how many plugins they had. So these are actual clients that hired him to do page speed improvements in WordPress. And so he goes through each one, shows you the host. And this is really good because it's demonstrating that it's not just that he can do this in one case, one perfect setup with one host and one type of builder. His team that does this work can do it in any platform. So, and he obviously has the before and after. This is really good at establishing proof. And then he goes on to, show some text, and then there's a testimonial, and you can click here. If you click here to get the report, I think it's around $80 for this report, and it's an actual person. Yeah, here we go, $79. So he will actually put a real person. They'll analyze your website. They'll analyze the page speed issues. Okay, so it's going to be difficult to make $1 million just making $79 at a time. Obviously, that's going to have a lot of orders. Is it doable? Absolutely, it's doable. But that's not where, the bread and butter's at for him. What he did after this, once you get your report, a lot of people won't have the time or the knowledge or the ability to make the changes themselves. Sometimes these are code changes. Sometimes they're CSS cascading style sheet changes. They're HTML changes, maybe compression. Maybe it's an issue at the server level, okay? So if you don't know how to do that, or you don't want to hire someone to do it, or your in-house guy doesn't know how to do it, then what you can do is purchase the full package where he will do everything to get those page speed boosts, and that is here. And you can see here, this is $2,495. Now, if you've got a website that is selling something and it's loading slow and people are leaving, especially if you're paying for ads on Facebook or Google, maybe even SEO issues happening here because your page is loading so slow, people are leaving, then it's a steal. If you pay him and he gets you really good, scores, your scores go up, your speed goes up, and now you're getting more sales. It pays for itself over time. But again, much easier to get to $1 million when you're making $2,495 per sale as opposed to $79. But you see how he built in, and remember, go all the way back to our really simple. This is essentially what he's done here, right? One very specific thing, something that you already know how to do, and you branch down to one problem, one result that you can get, and you actually can build an entire business around that thing and build the proof around that to generate $1 million. It's very, very possible. In fact, Scott is already doing it. Now, really quickly, I'm going to go through just a couple things here. One thing that's interesting is the use of this graphic, because while it does show a slight increase, it's not exactly a huge boost. And when it comes to page speed, this is like a line graph, and that's not really the way people see page speed, especially because they're using Google PageSpeed Insights. Second issue is the proof is quite a bit down to here. Okay, you have to scroll. And what's interesting is within this paragraph here, he says, what if I told you 40% or more people trying to visit your website leave before they ever see a word of it? Okay, that gets your attention. Then he says, and what if I told you that you have a whopping 3 seconds to capture their attention before they're gone for good? Okay, so, the 3 seconds is right here and probably right about here. So if he follows his own advice, which I know he's very smart, if he follows his own advice, he needs to get this proof up higher on the page, so in 3 seconds, we see the proof. And we don't have to read this block of text to figure out what's going on. The other thing I would fix with this is really good, where he demonstrates, they had a lot of plugins, they had a certain, because someone coming to this page will be like, hey, I host with WP Engine and I use Genesis and I have 21 plugins too, or I've got 15 plugins or whatever. So this is great. He did a really good job here. What I would change here is this is a bit confusing, even though, if I sit here and study it, it's easy to see, okay, here's before, here's after. Okay, here's desktop, here's the desktop, here's the mobile, here's the mobile. But what I would do instead is I would not put these two side by side. I would show the before desktop score, and then I would show the after desktop score, and I would actually use the screenshot from PageSpeed Insights, the actual graph that they use when you do a search, when you run a test there. And because that is the environment that people know, it's also the screen they would have seen when they realized they have a problem with the page speed on their site. So they're already familiar with that. So it would be much better just to keep that same screen and show exactly, okay, here's the desktop score, and then have, a cut here or a division line, and then show the new desktop score. And if he wants to show mobile, he can also show that separately. But that format, I think, would work better, and it would instantly deliver the message of his before and after, what he's able to do. This is really great. I'd keep that the same. Everything else is fine. It's actually a very short page. This proof could probably be punched up just a bit more if he was allowed to demonstrate, the website or have a name of someone. But obviously, he's not making this up. He's actually done these tests. He's improved these things. One other really great thing about this is he can do this to hundreds of websites, and he will always get this nice before and after setup, because he's doing the initial testing and then he's doing the improvements, and he can just say, before and after. He's going to be able to build a ton of proof into this business, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of proof images. And with each one, it gets more and more believable that he's going to get you the result. And remember, that's what you're after at the end of the day. Not just that your product gets results, but that your products will get results for them. What I wanted you to see more than anything was that you can take your simple list of things that you're good at, and any one of them could be drilled down to find a very specific problem result before and after combination that people are willing to pay for right now. And you could just focus on that one thing. Of all the things you can do, you can focus on that one thing, build a lot of proof around the results that you get, and sell that proof for a lot of money.